I'm Dan McDermott. This is our first show here on Blog Talk Radio, also broadcasting live on Ustream. Now, this is a work in progress. I was going to have some fancy graphics and things like that, but we don't. So anyway, we will soon. So Emily is going to join me shortly. She'll be calling in just a little bit. But we're going to talk about some news, and I thought I would start with just a couple personal notes. The personal note number one is a starling has built a nest right outside our porch. You go on the back porch, and just to the left is this starling nest, and you can't see it, but you can hear them. They're apparently extremely hungry. Now, I did some research on starlings, limited research, mind you, but they're apparently an invasive species from Asia, and they built this nest, and I guess for about 3 weeks, I'm going to hear these little guys screaming all the time. It's kind of funny. The mother will hang out in a tree with a worm and glare at me, and then as soon as I come inside off the porch, the mother, I assume mother, dashes in and feeds the little guys, and then it's really neat. So we play this sort of game where I pretend I don't see the starling going in and out right next to my porch, and the starling pretends that I don't notice that it's going in and out with worms, which I guess are pretty tasty, and they have an insatiable appetite, these little guys. As soon as sometimes the starling will fly by and then dash off because it sees me, and then the little guys will just start screaming out of control. I don't know. It sounds like about 3 or 4 of them. And anyway, so that's my starling story. Also, there's this spider, and I'm going to try to get a picture next time I talk about it, but it's a common household spider. And if you Google that, you can find the Wikipedia entry. That's also built a nest in the corner there. So what's interesting to me is that the spider keeps getting these much bigger spiders. Every day, there's a larger dead spider that has wandered into the web. And what I can't figure out is, don't spiders know about spider webs? And why it's making a killing in this corner. It's really getting all these spiders every day, and then it cuts it out after it, I guess, sucks the juices out of. It's kind of gross, but anyway, so that's going on. All right, so Emily's supposed to call. I'm still waiting for Emily, and I'm going to send her a text, I think, here. Let's see if I can send Emily a text. And she should have called by now. I wonder if I told her the right number. 818-688-6625. 818-688-6625 is the guest call-in number. And so that is the number. And we should be hearing from her shortly. I'm going to say now, ! Emily, because I'm dying. All right. Okay, so in the news, she's going to talk about the Republican Jon Huntsman entering the race. And I want to talk about a little tech news. Most folks who are into computers and stuff are somewhat interested in tech. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the HP, the HP tablet. But first, I think I'm going to bring Emily in. Emily, can you hear me? Now I'm going to figure out how to bring her in. Emily, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Thanks for calling. I was dying, and now you're here, so that's great. Okay, so Emily, I told my spider story and my starling story already, and I have no idea if anyone's watching or listening, but we might have a couple. And we'll keep the archives up there. If you would like to call, please join us. The number is 818-688-6625. Again, 818-688-6625. So, Emily, you've been checking out the news today, and one of the things that's happened is we have a new candidate in the, I got to say, relatively boring Republican field for the Republican nomination to challenge President Barack Obama. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's Jon Huntsman.
You've got a bad signal. If you could move somewhere and maybe get another bar or two on your cell phone.
Right. Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, great. Well, yeah. Once again, Jon Huntsman is he was appointed by Obama to be ambassador to China. So he and the president are no strangers to each other. And when he announced, he made it pretty clear that he was going to run on a campaign that would involve a surprising lack of Obama bashing, I guess, in the traditional sense that the Republican Party has been using that. He was very cordial towards the president, saying that while he had no doubt that the president was, a true American and cared about the country, that he disagreed on some policy things and thought that he might make a better president. So, pretty interesting.
Jon Huntsman was ambassador to China, and I think that he made a point of, or President Obama made a point of praising him for his work for the administration, or something like that. It's sort of a friendly jab. I think he's an intellectual. He's a former governor, I believe, of Utah. Not Utah. Where was he governor? Utah. Former governor of Utah. And so yeah, it's interesting. Right now, I guess the front runner is Mitt Romney. And Newt Gingrich is out, or all but out. I don't know. We'll see. He's interesting. And Newt's an intellectual, but he's not run a perfect campaign, I guess. And I guess he's hiring if anyone's looking for a job. So it's the big leagues. And I don't see, I saw Chris Christie. I know Brian Wiegand, who hosts the morning show on WLNI with Mary White, pointed in Twitter to a thing where Chris Christie he's so interesting. He was in a call-in show in New Jersey where he's governor, and Chris Christie, of course, is adamantly not running for president. He says, if I have to commit suicide to prove it, but a caller went in and criticized him for putting his own kids into school, in a private school, when he is not the best friend of the teachers unions. And he basically said, what's your name, lady? And that's none of your business where I put my kids to school, and I pay $38,000 a year in property taxes to support the local public school system. I think they'll benefit from a religious education. So I choose to put them in parochial school, and it's just none of your damn business. And he's just so blunt, and he's so impolitic. Now, I don't know. I think his popularity in the state, like a lot of these guys, like Rick Perry in Texas, their popularity within their state is not as strong as it is nationally. Just like when Gorbachev was head of the Soviet Union, he was much more popular overseas than he was in the Soviet Union, and Maggie Thatcher, big time. So I think, not to put an analogy to international, but yeah, I think the Republican Party it needs something. But I guess who knew about Barack Obama at this point in the cycle 4 years ago? I didn't. I knew about him, but I didn't expect him to win, and I didn't. I don't think he was generating the buzz that he eventually did once it became Obama versus Hillary. So anyway, what are your I don't know. We'll see as it hashes out. We'll learn more about these candidates and move on. So you had another story. You I guess go ahead. What's the second story you were talking about?
Well, something else that happened today is the government released a series of really graphic images that they plan to put on the backs of cigarette cartons, I think starting next year. And they're pretty gruesome. There's one of, a diseased lung versus a healthy lung, and one of a man with a tracheotomy, and another of, smoke-stained teeth with, I think there's gum cancer going on in that one too. So they're really, and of course the tobacco companies aren't happy, but the government is really convinced that it's the right thing to do. They were reporting, the New York Times is actually reporting that while the percentage of people in the United States that smoke has gone down, it was 42% in 1965, it's now 20%. That number, 20%, is really stagnant because it's not getting any smaller. And that, according to the CDC, smoking is still the most preventable cause, the leading cause of preventable death in the country, killing over 400,000 people a year. So, they have some numbers to support them on this effort, and they wouldn't be first. Other countries have done similar efforts. to combat smoking within Canada. So pretty interesting, though, the images that are out there.
Cigarettes are relatively cheap in the United States compared to a lot of places in certain parts of the United States. I know Virginia historically had, I think, a 5-cent tax per pack. It was the lowest in the country. Of course, Virginia and the Carolinas are big tobacco producing areas because of the climate and because we were on the coast. And it was, I guess we grew them and shipped them and got everyone else hooked. So it's big in Europe, I think. I think in Europe, the warnings, it's almost like an X-rated movie on the side of a pack of cigarettes. It has gone down. The fact is, it's an addictive drug. It's as addictive as, I don't know, anything, I guess. And I don't know what, they don't seem to have gotten much better. I could be wrong in helping people quit. And it is very addicting. And I think R.J. Reynolds is suing over this latest batch of warning labels. But I mean, it all helps, anything, just like it used to be. It was socially acceptable more so than it is now to smoke. And when my parents were kids, everyone smoked. It was on TV, There were TV commercials. All the characters smoked. Everyone was smoking all the time. And now I think they'll actually bump you up in the movie ratings. That's one of the things like parental guidance suggested because characters are smoking, So it's become less cool. And we had a conversation yesterday about it. And you said that there were some taboo things when you were in high school and college. And smoking was one of them. That wasn't the case when I was in high school. In fact, the school sold cigarettes in the school store for students. If you had to be, I think, 16 and have permission, and then they went up to 18, and now it's banned, as it is in most places. And now you go by a government building and you see or any kind of big office building, and you see the smokers huddled in the freezing rain outside. So it's sort of, the stigma has changed. It's reversed. And it's a good thing. I know that I think during the correspondence dinner, I can't remember the guy's name from Saturday Night Live who did the thing. He said, Seth Meyers was talking about Bloomberg. He said a Bloomberg rally is a bunch of smokers standing outside a bar complaining about Bloomberg because he's banned it. You can't. If you think about smoking, you get a fine. And so he's adamantly about it. I think he's a former smoker. And traditionally, the most ardent anti-smokers are ex-smokers. But, yeah, it's a hard thing to kick. And so anything they can do to encourage it, whatever they've done thus far has reduced it by more than half based on the statistics you've shown. Again, if you'd like to join our conversation on any current issue or whatever, please give us a call. The number is 818-688-6625. Again, 818-688-6625. We're going to go on for better or worse until 3:30, and that's 20 some minutes left. So anyway, okay. So before we get to your third topic, and if you can come up with some more, that's great. I want to talk about HP releasing their new tablet, and I want to see what your thoughts are. I was reading a review on Ziff Davis.net, and they were saying, obviously the iPad is the leader, and BlackBerry recently released the Playbook, and I'm a BlackBerry fan. I have a BlackBerry. I like it, and the premise of the article was, do we really need this tablet? Is this relevant? And so WebOS is this new platform. There are many Android tablets out there. That's Android is the operating system that Google put out. It's free. It's open source. Anyone can use it. And then there's but it's all about the apps. This is at its naked core. It's a device to do things. The computer is the only product that does more than one thing. It's the only machine designed to do a multiple number of things. Most machines, do one thing, but the computer's different in that way. And it all boils down to all the different things you can do with it. And the sexiest apps clearly are being developed for iOS, which is the platform that Apple is using. So I think this all goes down to back in the day, Steve Jobs, his whole premise when the computer was being developed, you had Bill Gates at Microsoft, Steve Jobs at Apple, and both at the time, it was sort of the techno geeks. You would order a computer and it was in pieces, and you'd put it together, and you could flip some switches and make it, do a math thing. It wasn't what they are today, and this is only a few decades ago. But Steve Jobs and Bill Gates saw this future, that this is a huge thing. They got it. And where Steve Jobs' strength has always been making it easy for the consumer, for the end user. And there's a big divide, and you know this, Emily, because your other half is a nuclear engineer. And there are engineer types and there are end users. And the engineers are, or at least the code, not to speak for Ryan, but often engineers are not great at creating the best user experience for the end user. And you see this in a lot of things. You'll see a lot of good programs that are well designed and functionally great, but the end user isn't, it's not easy. And they need sort of someone who's not as technically inclined to sort of develop that. Well, Steve Jobs is lucky he can do both. And that's been his strength. And that's why he's dominated. The graphical user interface is terrific. And then the iPhone was just this huge bonanza. And then he basically created the whole tablet market. There were tablets before, PDAs, personal digital assistants, and things like that. But he basically created this whole demand with this product. So I don't see anybody really tackling that. What are your thoughts on the iPad versus the Playbook versus the new HP? I don't even remember the name, and I guess it doesn't matter because it's probably not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you on. I mean, Jobs obviously has the design aspect of his technology down. I mean, all of Apple's products are incredibly sexy. Period. They're great. And I mean, part of that is the fact that he hires people to do outside design on his products. I mean, he has very serious design work done just on the casings and to make sure that when you pick up an iPad, it feels incredible. It's light, it's thin, and and it's been really hard for the the Windows PC side of things to match that. Not only on the laptop front, which it took a while for PC laptops to come up to the level that the iBooks were, but also on MP3 players. I'd say that the smartphones are doing a good job at matching what the iPhone did originally. But with tablets, it's going to be tricky. It's hard identifying the tablet market to begin with. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you have to find specific uses for it. I mean, here in Lynchburg, the city council is now using them to view all of their documents on. So they have an electronic form of all of their, zoning plans and what have you. And then they can just write right on the tablet, and that's a great practical use for it. But on the basic consumer level, tablets are just an electronic way for people to read, magazines, and they do. They look great on the iPad. But it's going to be tricky for HP to match that. I know that HP has been messing around with larger touchscreen computers for a little while now. I'm not sure how they're doing on that financially, but who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us.
I think the big mistake that they're making is these other also-rans are pricing it at the same thing. What is it, $4.99 or $5.99 for the Wi-Fi version? The difference being 16 or 32 gig models. Well, they don't have the apps, right? They don't have the apps being the software you can either buy or get for free in the various app stores to propagate the device to do different things. And iOS, the Apple iPad, has the most apps by far, and it's very popular. Everyone who's anybody is developing for that platform. And then if they have time and the resources, and then there was just in the news that some big company that is going to stop its Twitter client for BlackBerry, for the BlackBerry system for Playbook and for the device, the actual phones. So my thinking is, if you have a device, it's kind of arrogant for you to say we only have 5,000 device apps available for this, whereas Apple has tens of thousands, I guess, or 100,000, I don't know. We're going to charge the same. I mean, the incentive for me, if the price is the same, obviously I'm going to buy an iPad too, rather than one of these other devices, unless I'm a real BlackBerry freak and I make the decision that I'm going to stick with that platform and get the Playbook. But I just don't see, RIM, Research in Motion, the maker of the Playbook, and BlackBerry, In the news today, they're laying people off. They have 9,000 employees in Canada. I think about 17,000 worldwide, and they're starting to lay people off. They just get more bad news in the news cycle, one after another, and then HP's doing this. I think if they made it cheaper, then you'd see more people apt to give it a try. But if the price is the same, I don't see any incentive to get the one that's not the cool one that has more stuff on it.
It's true. I mean, if you're not going to be able to beat them, either design-wise, as far as user interface goes, or even just on the coolness factor. I mean, traditionally that's been one of the arguments for buying PC is because they have been able to keep them cheaper. So, I mean, it's a perfect example of looking at MP3 players. I mean, when the Zune came out, it was just as expensive as the iPod, and it didn't work as well. So, I mean, there you go. And where's the Zune now? How many people do you know that own a Zune?
The entire Gates family in Washington State, all the Melinda Gates says she has a Zune, or Bill did. I forget, one of the two.
One would hope so.
The philanthropist.
One would hope so.
Okay, so
I don't know. I mean, they've got to do something.
Okay, you said
something to make it work.
I agree, and I think maybe we can figure out some logical reason for us to get iPads. To try to justify it. I mean, it's a toy, I guess when it first came out, they had there was a prime minister sitting in the airport, snowed in or something, and he had an iPad, and I think the headline was "Prime Minister so and so runs country with iPad." Those are fun stories, but I don't know. We'll see. Now, tell me, you had a third story you want to talk about that I didn't know anything about.
Well, it looks like Senator Kerry and Senator McCain are working together on they just announced a resolution dealing with Libya. The resolution itself says that it proposes that the United States continue to protect its security interests in Libya, but it also says that we would not have wouldn't have long-term deployments or actually base troops there. I think probably one of the great things about this resolution is simply the fact that we're seeing some really good bipartisan work on it. I mean, it's been a while since we've had a solid teaming between the aisles, and it's good to see Kerry and McCain being the people to do it. I think senior leadership like this in Washington is greatly needed, and it's a good thing.
I'm glad they got those guys. I'm glad they got those guys out of mothballs. I know Bill Clinton and George Herbert Walker Bush 41, did some stuff on Haiti and some other things together. Yeah, that's interesting. McCain and Kerry on Libya. Libya, I don't know why we're not doing it or not doing it. It seems and Larry Sabato, who's a political science professor at the University of Virginia, keeps harping on the cost, and it's a point. But it seems to me if the paradigm would change if we got them. Because I remember I was a kid. I grew up overseas because my dad worked for the U.S. government. We were stationed at the U.S. Embassy in London. And I remember when you're a little kid, you look out the window when the big 747 comes, and Pan Am was the main airline we used. And they would name, you'd see on the front of the airplane, it would say Clipper something, Clipper Seabreeze, Clipper Ocean Spray, Clipper of the Seas. They named each plane. And I can't remember now, but at the time I remember seeing it on television and thinking, oh my gosh, and I was a little kid, I had been on that plane. Because the flight, it flew over Lockerbie, Scotland, but it was going from Europe to the U.S. And it was just shocking. I could have been on the plane. And any, diplomat's kid or family could have been in the same situation. So I remember when that SOB did this, right? And so if they got him, but to just bomb around him, if you're going to do it, be a man and just blow his, the first shots should have been his whole compound and, get him. I mean, Reagan got him or got his daughter, I guess, and you didn't hear about him for a while. I mean, that's, I guess, controversial to say, but I mean, that worked, So I think we should poop or get off the pot. And, I don't know. I don't think it's going famously, frankly.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I think that that there was a great desire for this to be a a cooperative effort on behalf of NATO to deal with it, so that it wasn't the U.S. is going up against Libya kind of situation. And I think that something needed to be done because there were citizens dying. But if we're there because we want to get rid of Gaddafi, we need to be really upfront about it, and we need to say that we're here to get rid of him. He's a danger to our country and the world, and this is what's happening. And if we're not there to do that, we need to say that too. I mean, there needs to be a little bit more transparency about what's going on there. There hasn't been. It's been a little vague, but then again, a lot of things happen. So,
and events.
This would be a great time for Obama to.
It's also occurring at the during the Arab Spring, when we're all excited about some of these countries that have been ruled by dictators, beginning in Tunisia and then Egypt, being overthrown by the people. And a lot of the more conservative talk shows were harping that it was all going to be the I forget the name, the Egyptian, the Muslim, whatever, that they're all going to turn into another, right, but they're all going to turn into this new extremist anti-US militant form of Islam, and that everyone wants that. They don't want that. Even in Iran, the people don't actually want that. There was do we forget the guys with the green in Iran protesting and the government putting them down? So I think it's an exciting time, and we want to help them, but at what cost? In terms of personnel, in terms of money. And most of your empires in history went down by spreading themselves too thin. And are we doing that now? I'm not sure. I think Larry Sabato said it was $700 million. That sounds low. That's wrong. It's got to be wrong, right? I'm not sure. It's got to be in the billions. But whatever we're spending, if we got Gaddafi, and if it resulted in a benevolent, peaceful government that served the people and didn't try to screw us and didn't blow up planes over Scotland, then I'm all for that. And I don't think, no U.S. troops have been killed, and it is a joint effort, although I really don't care about that as much. It's just a PR ploy for the folks who are not as interested in supporting the U.S. position. But I don't know. It's we're going to see how it ends up, and to the victor goes the spoil of being able to write the history. And we'll see what happens, because if we do end up getting him and there's a peaceful government, then it will, in retrospect, look great. But right now, it's easy to criticize. Hindsight's 20/20. So we got less than a minute left. Emily, I want to thank you for participating in our first show here, and it's interesting. So we're gonna go. I think we need to get some iPads, right?
Yeah, definitely. It was a pleasure to be here, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Yep, and we got to get her a landline or something, or maybe we'll get you a Magic
90
Jack.
seconds.
And I have 90 seconds. It says so.
I just need to move.
I just heard a thing in my voice saying we have 90 seconds, so don't go anywhere yet. Yeah, you're getting ready to move, right? You're going to move to a new location in Lynchburg.
Yep, new location and hopefully better cell reception.
Now you
fingers crossed.
Tell me. I talked about the spider and the bird's nest outside. So you tell me about your personal stuff. What you're in you've got a 1-bedroom now with Ryan and you guys. I guess you've been in Lynchburg how long?
Well, it'll be a year in September.
And you were in Boston before that, right?
How many months? Yeah. So we're getting used to the heat. Supposed to get up to 90 degrees today, and I'm saying to the fact that homes have air conditioning. It's a nice change.
You're breaking up a bit. You have did you have 4 seasons in Massachusetts? I can't remember because I've been to Worcester, but
yeah, it got pretty hot, but in Boston it gets hot for maybe a week.
10 seconds.
It'll reach in the 90s, and it's it's brutal being in the city when it's that hot.
Awesome. We got we're closing. Hey, thanks so much to Emily.